Okay, we are recording. I will keep the slides like this, and I will try to put the show mode because otherwise I'm not able to see the screen. So, well, a couple of minutes for the antitrust compliance policy that you already know. So we can jump into the agenda for today. So first thing I want to announce to all of you is based on the work plan that I proposed. If you remember, there were some webinars around human rights, around how to build a human rights policy, how to conduct due diligence. So instead of having webinars, I've been in touch with with experts, with consultants here in Spain that has been working for the UN and has been working with other recognized organizations. So instead of having these webinars, I thought that it could be more interesting for you all to have a capacity building training on human rights and due diligence. So the idea is, well, I will explain how this is going to be framed and organized, but the reality is that, as you have mentioned previously, many of you have limited capacity within your companies to maybe or to understand or to maybe to address all these questions. And I recognize that there is a lot of information outside, a lot of tools, and a lot of toolbox or mechanism maybe to address the due diligence and maybe not from a practical point of view. So the idea is with a capacity building training, trying to help you on conducting all this work. I would like to review the fisheries and the current initiatives, new risks that has arisen the last week, where we are in terms of the work plan implementation, and just a refreshment on what is going on in Boston. So instead of having these webinars about talking the existing principles or the tools, I've been in touch with these persons, with these people, to really see how to help you from a practical point of view. So first, we will conduct one generic session probably in April, more informative session on what are the existing principles, agreements, regulations, with a specific focus on the seafood sector. So something that is going to be the umbrella for the rest of the capacity training, and also for you to understand where you are, in which geography you are, and what is the mandate from these big organizations or OECD, UN, or others that may apply for your businesses where you are based. So this is going to be the umbrella for the rest of the capacity training. And then deliver specific guidance to conduct human rights due diligence in your value chains based on existing methodologies and existing guidance outside. I'm really positive about the new tool that the Danish Institute for Human Rights has launched. I believe it's practical, it's very clear and concise. So I asked them to maybe base the guidance and the recommendations on this methodology. Okay, it doesn't mean that they won't adapt to a better or a more practical use. And then support all the SR participants developing human rights policies and how to include the human rights dimension in your procurement decisions. I know that we have an heterogeneous group of companies. We have small and medium-sized companies. We have other big companies within the SR. We have companies that initiated this journey years ago, others that has started recently, and others that don't really know how to address these questions. So what we want to do is, I'm going to probably, if you agree on conducting this capacity training in the next month, because we know that there is the Boston trade show now, there is then the Barcelona show. So we will leave March probably and April for this generic and also for the project development. That means that we may ask you through a survey or through really quick interview where you are in this journey and what are your interests, to tailor as much as possible the contents of the training. The training are going to be hosted, sessions are going to be duplicated and are going to be hosted in English and Spanish and in 2 convenient time zones. Because now we have a really big, an important community of Spanish speakers and also English speakers, and I believe that it's fair to have the training in 2 languages and in 2 time zones that are convenient for any of you. The capacity trainings are designed for SR participants, not for individuals, for the companies. So if you feel like you need to invite your human resources team, human rights team, or any other staff within your company, I strongly recommend you to design someone internally that is going to be able to help you to conduct and to participate in the webinar, because we are going to host as well, in the middle of the sessions, Q&A sessions. So you are able to ask, so the mechanics of these Q&A sessions, to not having the issue of people raising their hands or asking things that, this is an idiot question, or this is a silly question, or I shouldn't ask this or other. We are going to, the mechanism is going to be after each session, during a few days, you will be able to ask questions by writing, and they will solve the questions anonymously during a session, during a Q&A session. For those that don't want to participate specifically or verbally, or are shy in terms of sharing some cases. So we strongly recommend that while you are attending these sessions, you are also developing your policies or reviewing the policies that you have in your companies, because you will have the opportunity to interact directly with the consultants. It doesn't mean that the consultants are going to respond to private or individual questions, or are going to conduct individual due diligence for the companies. They are open to work individually with the companies if you find that you need extra support or further clarifications. The reality is that here is more in a way that all of you are going to receive the same information, the same methodology and guidance, and with that you can decide how to use this guidance. And finally, as well, all these sessions will be recorded and will be complemented with briefings, relevant materials, bibliography, and also I was thinking maybe even in asking to the consultants to at some point develop sort of templates or materials that you can share internally within your company. For example, new people, new staff in your company is coming. You can share this capacity training, or you can share with people that has not been able to participate online. So this is the reason why. Yes, Sarah?
Just thinking out loud, it'd be good for procurement teams, like buyers, people like that, would find it really useful as well, I think. But just a question, is there an expectation, so once we have the capacity training, to have a policy in place by a certain deadline, or what's the kind of expectation from?
Well, that's a good question. The reality is that as I mentioned at the end of last year, there is a commitment from companies within the SR to have these human rights policies or these procurement policies, including the human rights dimension. So we understand that until now, you were a little bit alone, maybe with this responsibility, or maybe internally there were not internal agreement from the company or from the boss of the companies, from the CEOs, or from the steering committees of the companies in doing that. But we believe that with this training, any SR participant should be able to start and to have commitments, public commitments, by the end of 2024, because we are offering as much as guidance as we can with the experts and the most up-to-date information. So we understand that, yes, Stacy, many of you has already started, so it's just a question of reviewing what you are doing or not participating if you don't want. But yeah.
Hi, Carmen. Can you tell us who the consultants are?
Yes, of course, I will share with you a presentation from them. They are based in Spain. I met them in Geneva in the UN Guiding Principles for Business and Human Rights in November. They has been also recommended by big organizations such the Human Rights Institute. They have worked with many companies in different sectors and with a big company, with a big seafood company, and they have already conducted due diligence, for example, in China and in other countries. So considering the spectrum of consultants we had, the spectrum of organizations that that are available to deliver this guidance, I have chosen this consultant because they are available in the period of time that we are willing to, and also because other NGOs such Oxfam or Danish Institute, which are the most NGOs most up to date with this topic, are NGOs and have their own agenda, and they are not delivering services. So we have the examples of other NGOs, for example, Fishes Wise, who has also this toolbox, RISE. But RISE has seemed to be very, very open and very complicated to just land and implement directly. So we expect that these consultants, these experts, are going to be able to provide a specific guidance and specific topics for companies, small and mid solutions, more than guidance, no, additional solutions to what has been done in the recent years from other organizations. So that's the idea. As well, the language was important, as there is a big important share of the industry that is based in Spain. So this is the reason why.
No, that's great to hear. I was just curious because we've worked with a group before, and it's difficult when you're, especially in the middle of supply chain like we are, and we're sourcing direct from some companies, from importers, we're sourcing from other middlemen companies. So like it has to be something that's semi-customizable to all of our companies so that we can ask the right questions in the right way, instead of just saying like, you know, are there remediation processes on your vessels? And the people may not even have vessels, but they're not checking with the vessels that they're sourcing from or their sources. So great, I'm excited.
Yeah, so the remediation process, I don't know if they will be able to enter. I believe, I have not had this discussion, but I believe that they will, of course, include the remediation process in the capacity training. But for me, this is what is more important and urgent now is how to address the risks that you have in your supply chains. The remediation process is also at the end of the solutions, and maybe we can dedicate a specific training on remediation, because this is even have not been solved by the principles that are available outside. So of course this is going to be included, and it's important to I take advantage as well, Stacy, to say that, and this is a one-to-one conversations that I have had with many of you. I take advantage as well to invite you to mobilize your suppliers that are importers, not yours in particular, Stacy, but some of your suppliers that may be importers that are not within the SR, because at the end of the day, and also communicate to your clients, because there are big distributors that have, in the case of a squid and octopus, suppliers that are within the SRs that are going to be trained on these topics, that has done a commitment, and you are competing, you are supplying the same client who is apparently not asking the same to all their suppliers. And the same for you, if you are a company that are importing, but you are also depending on importers or traders, I would ask them to raise the level and to ask all of your suppliers to be in the same align in the same topic. So well, this is This is what we recommend. Otherwise, you are going always to have some part of the risk that is not going to be controlled by your policies or by your practices. And then after this capacity training, more focused on how to do this due diligence or developing these human rights policies, we consider that many of these due diligence may not work in regions from China, as we have seen, because there are many companies conducting due diligence, doing traceability, or believing that they have some control on their value chains. And at the end of the day, there are many programs like the North Korean recent report on the Outland Ocean Project, or the Uyghurs migrants, that are literally programs that are legal in China. Even these plants and processes are authorized to export to Europe. So how do you detect these specific risks in specific regions of China? This is going to be another part of this capacity training. So we were thinking in not a specific guidance to source from China. We don't want to to create confusion or saying that you can buy from China without any risk. No, we want to avoid considering that any single processor in China is not responsible. So if there are responsible suppliers or plants in China, there should be a mechanism to identify them and to work with them. So this second part of this training is more focused on first identification of risks. And here, after a conversation with the consultants and other experts, we believe that the best is identifying the regions where you are sourcing from. So this is something that I will ask as part of these interviews or surveys that I'm going to send to you. So what are the regions where do you believe that we need to map this risk? For example, the regions that are close in the border with North Korea and China, where there is this risk of North Korean Xinjiang, or other regions that are really a hub for squid processing. So this is where you may also collaborate to give us an idea, the geographical scope for the project. And then based on the risk identified in these regions and generic risk identified in China, what are potential solutions, what we can tell to participants instead of moving away. If you are moving away from China and you cut business relationships with them, you must ensure that when you are building new relationships, you are conducting this due diligence, because it doesn't mean because you leave China, you are not implementing best practices in a different region. So the training in general will help you to do this work. And then if you keep going with supplying from China, or you have historic suppliers in China that you want to keep the relationship with them, what you should do. No, this is the solutions of the piece of advice specific on China that we are going to develop after the capacity training as a specific case of a study within this guidance. Any comment or question? This may also help us because now we have on hold all this project, all this FIP that was at some point interrupting China in the Loligot chinensis, in the common squid, in the mitral squid, and we interrupt that because of the risks and because we were not able to map a responsible value chain and engage suppliers. So even after this capacity building training, we can figure it out how to re-engage the stakeholders from the FIB, what we should ask, well, basically what you should ask in terms of business sourcing from suppliers. So this is the goal of the capacity building, so of the training. So the next steps, the estimated budget is $10,000 US. Considering that we need to duplicate the sessions, is a bit expensive. As a reminder, we have the amount of money from last year for the Patagonian squid profile that was developed. We found external funding, so we have this money available. So I don't think that there should be budget issues within the current SR budget. If you want to conduct this training, the money is there, and we can also find external match funding for this. And Also, we are considering maybe to open the webinar, the training, at least the first part of the training, to participants of the Octopus Supply Chain Roundtable if they are interested. So we could share as well part of the budget. But initially, the training is destined to Squid SR participants. We need your collaboration. First, as I mentioned, to tailor as much as possible the contents of the training and understand what is the baseline for each company. If you are starting from zero, or you have already a program that you want to review, or things you want to verify. Who within your companies, as I mentioned before, must participate or you would like to involve. And also identify these regions in China. No, this region is China that should be included in the risk mapping. What I've proposed for the agenda and for the calendar is having this first informative session in April, and the reason is because during the conference program of Boston Sena, that I don't know if any of you are going to be able to participate, but I've realized that there is a lot of human rights due diligence conferences or in general. And also during Barcelona trade show, there will be again conferences around these topics. So I believe that an informative session in the middle of the two shows will give you a follow-up and also an advanced view of all these conferences to clarify on doubts. The technical and Q&A sessions would be hosted in May and June, and probably the risk identification and guidance to be completed, I would say, mid of July. I wouldn't like to enter into the summer period or holidays period. So try to finalize everything 10th of July. Starting the work that I'm coordinating with consultants if this is approved right after Boston. Any comments, objections? I can ask again during the meeting in Boston, but is there any objection or any? Of course, you can propose additional topics. You can propose modifying some contents. In this survey, I will leave you to request specific topics of interest, but Rodrigo, yes?
No, I mean, the only comment is that it's going to be very interesting, at least for us, to attend all these, formative sessions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if there are no objections, I just need to review the quorum for today and the Rodrigo, please, if you can mute your mic.
Sorry.
There's some background noise. Thank you. Don't worry. So for now, I consider that you agree, that all of you agree on conducting this session, but I will wait Boston to confirm that it's only in 1 week. Next point of the agenda is reviewing the fisheries status and current initiatives. Is quite well linked with the next bullet point of the work plan implementation review. But the first thing is I cannot talk today about the new IUU and human rights risks that has been identified in the media. On the one hand, on Sunday, there was the Outland Ocean Project publication added new investigation on North Korean forced labor. As I mentioned before, it's really hard to detect this question because it's integrated into some labor programs between China and North Korea. So by Chinese probably regulators, this is not considered forced labor. It's a sensitive topic, but this is the reality. So this is the reason why in many cases this has not been identified probably. And also because we know that due diligence is not so common until now, and people were trusting just in the suppliers that they have made relationships since the last year. So we have seen the first reactions from the industry in media, some companies declaring that they are also stopping, in these cases, relationship with these companies identified in the Atlantic Ocean Project report. Tomorrow there is one webinar. It's very late for the European companies. We are not involved in this webinar at all. I've just received the information, so I will just share with you the invitation. This webinar is organized by the Accountability Research Center, and there are many experts and the journalist that was involved in the research, and Urbina, talking at this webinar. So if it's of your interest, I will share the link with all of you. I received this information yesterday. Again, it's very late for European companies, but maybe it's recorded and is shared after the registration. I don't know. Just in case, this is something that you can have a look. And obviously, this is going to be included, this topic, and it was mentioned already by the experts, but just to confirm that this is going to be added to the scope of the training. The recommendation is, again, review the list of processors listed in the report. Vessels, if you have the capacity to link the vessels with the processors and your suppliers and importers, and try to request specific information for companies that may be involved here and conduct the due diligence. So this is the recommendation we can do today, as we did with the first publication of the Atlantic Ocean project. I don't know if there are comments here. This has been published in the New Yorker, but also in Spain, it has been published in El País. Probably the Spanish companies are aware of it. And if you go into the Atlantic Ocean Project website, there are all the publications that they have done around the world in other countries and in other languages. Another risk that we have recently identified. So on the one hand, there was a really good news a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, about the rate of the rating of the FIP, who was C, as any FIP that is rated by the first time. But the reality is that we have identified that there are 4 vessels in the list of vessels of the FIP that are highlighted in the Atlantic Ocean Project report. These 4 vessels are Argentinian flagged, but if you look into the list of vessels, you will find that there are a lot of Chinese vessels. And the reason is that Argentinian companies and Argentinian vessels are in reality, in many cases, joint ventures with Chinese companies, in many cases. And these companies may be linked to beneficial owners that own also processing plants where where there are allegations of human rights abuses. So CAPA is aware of this question. We have also communicated to CAPA the importance of this topic. What CAPA has told me in particular is that when they initiated the FIP was initiated by 6-7 companies in Spain and in Argentina, and they decided to open the participation into the FIP to all the CAPA vessels without any other restriction. So you were an associate of CAPA, you could be part of the FIP, and this is the way that they did to include all the volume produced in Argentina by jiggers. The reality is that there were not other participation criteria, so they are looking into how to limit the participation to vessels and beneficial owners that are not involved in these questions. But the reality is that today there is this risk, and you must ask if you are sourcing from the FIP. The FIP is about what is going on in the water. So it's not about the post-harvest or the processing. So if these vessels somehow are linked to processing plants in China, probably there will be an easy way of connecting everything to human rights and IUU. So the first recommendation is connect with your supplier if you are sourcing from jiggers in Argentina to really ask about the vessel name, what is the processing, and what is the beneficial owner, the real beneficial owner information. But on the top of that, we have also communicated with Kappa. Kappa is addressing this internally. They have told me that they were hosting an steering committee meeting today or tomorrow to really strengthen the participation criteria within the FIP with criteria associated to responsible operators, not involved in IUU or human rights abuses with beneficial owners. I'm awaiting the response from Kappa, and we will see if we may send a letter from the SR, if we communicate with Kappa directly. But the first recommendation is for you to talk individually with your suppliers, to say, listen, there is this risk for us when sourcing from a FIP, from this FIP. We would like specific information about the vessels, and if possible, the beneficial owners, because this risk is there. So we realized that quick.
This is a silly question, but what are beneficial owners? Is that the processing facility? Is that the owners of the vessels?
It's very hard. So, Stacy, this is really, really hard to figure it out, because in many cases, when you are talking about a joint venture from the business perspective, you may have, for example, 40% of the share of the company and 60% the share of the company is owned by a company that is in China or Vietnam or wherever. And the problem is not, I'm not very worried. I have to say that there are a couple of vessels that has been accused of turning off the AES within the Argentinian waters. So there are sanctions or not sanctions within Argentinian waters, but this is not the problem. The ultimate problem is that the owner of this vessel is not the Argentinian company. The owner of this vessel is owning a processing plant in China. And probably all the raw material is being processed from the FIP and outside of the FIP, because the Chinese fleets are all processing the same raw materials in the same processing plants. And it's almost impossible to have traceability to the vessel once the squid has been put in a container, in a reefer, and it has been. So this is the reality. The real traceability doesn't exist for these products that can be stored for months in a cold storage facility, or that has been processed in the same processing plant, or transshipped in the same reefer. So this is the reason why the FIP needs to address and limit the vessels that are going to be part of the FIP. Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really worrying, isn't it? I'm just thinking back to when Gilles helped us when he did some consulting for us, and it's really hard, isn't it, to find out if it's a Chinese company, like being the beneficial owner. Is there any way? I know Kappa are going to come back to you in the next couple of days, but do you think they might be able to help us identify who those owners are from China, or do you think that's kind of a step too far and a bit tricky?
This is something that Kappa must decide. Kappa probably is going to ask for some guidance or advice, but the reality is that today there is a charter of transparency. 2 years ago, there was a coalition for transparency in fisheries, and there is a charter with some recommendations, or not recommendations. There is a charter that defines 10 principles for full transparency. So I believe that they could follow that charter and trying to implement what the charter says. Say that, again, Kappa is an association that probably not all the participants will be happy with this topic, because, as mentioned, the first company that were involved in the FIP were not the totality of Kappa associates. So this is a mechanism that Kappa needs to implement, and it's also responsibility of Kappa, who is the lead of the FIP, to implement these questions. SFP is not a FIP implementer, has not a responsibility within the FIP. SFP, of course, monitor and Sorry, someone is trying to join. So SFP, of course, support, monitor, and provide advice. And we gave them visibility, and we connect them with all of you. But we need to see what CAPA decision is, and then you will decide if you keep sourcing from CAPA, if you give recognition to the FIP, or you support the FIP or not. So for now, we have informed CAPA about this. I have to say that the reaction was good so they were not so aware about the risk of including all the associates, because they really thought that it was about what was going on about the work plan. The problem of FIPS is the FIPS are so tied to the work plan, focusing on MSC indicators, that they don't look into other considerations. So probably if this has happened 5 years ago, nobody was going to look into the vessels list of the FIPS. But now it's a different situation. So this is not a question of the FIP itself and the work plan implementation, is the work plan is not addressing these questions. So how we can ask them to address these questions? Even more important than the MSC indicators that they are monitoring within the FIP. So we need to see the reaction.
Okay. Thank you.
But of course, it's a really complicated topic. So please reach out to me if you have other questions, or you hesitate in raising your hand now. If you are digesting this information right now, don't worry. We will have time also. I'll be around in Boston, and we will try to see how to connect with them as soon as possible and to ask them to react. But my recommendation is that those that are sourcing from Argentinian vessels from CAPA, or Argentinian operators or suppliers that are sourcing from Argentina, really make these questions and requesting this information. Okay. So this is the webinar that I mentioned that I was invited yesterday. We don't have any relationship with the organization of this webinar, but I thought it could be interesting for those that are not 11 p.m. in Europe. So what we have done during this quarter, I will try to. So this is more this work plan implementation and the updates on the fisheries. Yes, Stacy. I will put in the chat box actually now at the end of the call, and then I will send by email today. So in terms of work plan implementation and review of what is going on by fisheries, in Peru, the FIP keeps its rating A. The list of vessels was updated in May, previous to the end of the formalization process. We are awaiting that in May they have to update, and before this time we will have the opportunity to meet with the people from Peru in Barcelona, because they are coming to Barcelona as last year. So on Peru this quarter there was not priority activities to be conducted. We are still awaiting the proposals and the financial proposals, in particular for the human rights impact assessment in Peru. I'm not very worried about that. We are not behind of the schedule, as this was goals, and there were not really specific activities on this. For the Chile economic exclusive zone, the jumbo flying squid in Chile, we have this stakeholder meeting occurring in Santiago de Chile, 20th of March. So right after Boston, I'm traveling to Chile. And there is a mistake here. It's not Peru, it's Chile, sorry. So there are already processing plants and exporters in Chile that are interested and has confirmed participation. So we hope that we are going to be able to present them the FIP model. There are also Japanese companies really interested and based in Chile with representation in Chile. Okay, Andre, don't worry. Really interested in participating. So we are moving forward with Chile, which is in a really better situation than Peru, given the governance of the country, the status of the fishery, and the current management of the fishery. And we hope that also the fishers profiles indicators are going to improve. For the high seas, we sent these letters. Some of the proposals were approved. We did a webinar to recap on all of this last week. I will share the recording link for those that couldn't participate. It was a really detailed webinar from Alfonso and also from the lawyer that participated in Calamar Sur and in the South Pacific FMO meeting, but it was really interesting. So I'll invite you to have a look to the webinar. But the reality is that we are in time in terms of the activities that we proposed. For the Argentine short fin squid, one important thing is that, and it's not in this slide, but if you remember, there were 3 efforts going on. In Falkland Islands, there was one Korean fleet that entered into full assessment, and this full assessment has been withdrawn because they have realized that the pre-assessment was not good enough and they were not going to be able to reach on the MSC certification. And the Argentine FIP, I already did this update. And in the high seas, all the profiles has been updated. So you have all the fishers profiles updated, and I will present the profiles in Boston if you want in person, or if you have had the opportunity to have a look, just ask me if you have any question or doubt about it, about the information available. The reality is that we are thinking on how to do in this statement about the importance of the regional stock assessment. So we are more or less in time with the work plan that we have defined. The Patagonian squid profile is done, is ready, is under the final review, so it's probably going to be published by the end of this week or next week. So by Boston, the Patagonian squid profile is going to be ready and available. So looking into the results of the Patagonian squid profile, we can request FIFCA, which is the Fisheries Authority in Falklands, if there are specific gaps or specific questions to address. Related to New Zealand, we still don't have news about the new management plan, but tomorrow I have a call with the team to see where we are with that, to develop the profile, so it's still in progress. For the Japanese flying squid and the Mitre squid, this is to be discussed in Boston, and probably after the capacity training, as I mentioned, to have new ideas on how to address and how to engage with these suppliers and these value chains. And for the Indian squid, there are some efforts going on, and we are going probably to have some updates in Boston, as I've contacted with someone from the west coast of India, and there are some pre-assessment going on in the west coast of India. So I believe that there are some opportunities for engagement in India for the Indian squid in particular, but there are other 3 species that are also mixed, and this is important as well to map where these species are being harvested or traded. So if you are sourcing from Indian squid, probably in the coming month or after the meetings in Boston and Barcelona, maybe doing some geographical identification and looking at the scope of your purchases is important. So this is in terms of fisheries. I don't know if you have any question related to the status of these fisheries or comments. Okay. And in terms, so this is related to the fisheries, to the geographical scope, but in terms of work plan implementation and the work plan that was included in the scope of work and in a document that I sent you in end of January for this year. Again, I'm glad to see that we have been moving forward from our side and also from your side with the support with the letter, the webinar, the participation, the feedback from many of you related to the jumbo flying squid in Chile, questions that arise. Also, well, I've seen that during this first month of the year, these 2 months of the year, there has been many interest and you have been very active. So thank you for that. The only thing that we need to confirm probably in Boston is what we do with the ODP. So this is something that we postponed to the Boston meeting in person. What we do with the ODP, do we want to publish information of the SR fisheries, in which way, anonymously, mentioning the companies, how we would do that. So this is something to be discussed during Boston Senate. So the deadline for the data collection as well for the next ODP was 31st of March, so first quarter, but we could also include April. It's not a big thing. The Global Fishing Watch, and this is important for the FIP in CAPA, and this is something that will support, maybe not directly the question that Stacy was mentioning about beneficial ownership, but about the behavior of the vessels. Global Fishing Watch has offered the FIP of CAPA to work together to make all the vessels from the FIP visible. So now there is a conversation going on between Global Fishing Watch, Fishery Progress, and the FIP to make this transparency project available. So it would be great, and I believe that it will include the beneficial ownership, maybe not at the first stage, but ultimately is going to include the beneficial ownership. And now with this situation with CAPA, let's see what happens. What are the vessels that are included in the FIP? What are the vessels that are going to be monitored or not? And what are the results? But I have to say that the conversations has been initiated, and we will keep going these conversations during Boston and after Boston. Related to GDST, as many of you know, GDST is going back and forth with these dialogues. There are services providers of traceability that are moving forward faster than what GDST is doing, because GDST is just populating the standard, but I don't think that they are offering technical solutions or practical solutions. So let's see how we can evolve this discussion, or how you independently can work with your traceability services providers to unify a little bit the work that you all are doing already. So this is still pending. I hope that after Boston and during Boston and Barcelona, I'll be able to connect again with GDST team. I had lunch recently with Greg Brown from GDST. I know that they are proposing new projects, but I don't see a practical implementation yet from their side. Okay, so I want to be really honest on what are the possibilities with them, and if we see that there is no a convenient discussion, dialogue, or practical solution, we can try to identify other solutions to implement the standard, but not through GDST, and maybe through other services providers. Related to the rest of the work plan implementation, so if you remember, there were like 4 pillars: governance and participation. What I'm going to ask you is to also invite your suppliers, clients, customers, or even the competitors to come to the SR showcase. So I'm publishing the information in LinkedIn. So if you are in LinkedIn and you want to share the invitation that I made, and the SR meeting is going to be private, but after the meeting, I will open the floor half an hour in case you also want to connect, or you want me to connect with any of your clients. There are really big distributors in US and in Europe that are not part of the SR and are importing raw materials, are processing, or have suppliers that are not in the SR. And we need to expand the participation to have a wider impact. We keep going with all this science-based management work, which is more on the fish source information, on the South Pacific RFMO work that has been achieved recently, what is going on with the status of the fisheries, the management of the fisheries. So this is more a theoretical work that SFP is delivering and is informing through fisheries profiles. So when there will be opportunities for you to advocate or to complement the work that we are doing, we are going to inform you. The Peruvian jumbo flying squid report, fishery progress report, is due in May. So it's in red just because it's not a topic for this quarter. And we keep going with this India FIP and regions mapping and initiating the improvement effort in Chile. For the human rights and due diligence, this is in red because I've really changed into this strategy of having instead of proposals for webinars or risk assessments, this capacity training, but probably Oxfam is going to deliver also a session, an informative session to all of you with a different point of view, and the Danish Institute for Human Rights probably as well. This is going to be complementary to the trainings. So this is where we are. And for the webinars, training and education, we just need to really define the calendar for the webinars, probably in between May and June. So what are the remaining activities for this quarter? Really, during Boston, we can approve on the ODP publication, finally approve the capacity training, identification of the Indian sourcing, and discussion on the Chinese FIPS, if there is an opportunity to reactivate those FIPS or what we can do there. Additionally, with Kappa FIP, request suppliers traceability information. As I mentioned, this is more a recommendation and something that you should do individually more than as the SR group, because this is the information that you must request to your suppliers. But what we can do from the point of view of the SR is request FIP having a stronger participation criteria to avoid risk related to links to these beneficial owners or processing plants involved in human rights abuses. For the Chilean FIP, please mobilize your suppliers, whether you are sourcing from FIP, from Chile, or maybe not, but you have suppliers that may be interested in sourcing from Chile. And if any of you is able, participate virtually in the meeting, in the stakeholder meeting, because it's not mapping, sorry, it's meeting, because it's important as well for the Chilean processors to understand that there is an interest from the foreign industry, from the importers, in seeing the fisheries being responsible. So I will share with you the information of the training, of the meeting, so you can just join for the first hour where we are doing the introduction, and you can state interest in implementing this FIP. And then again, for expanding the participation, I believe that we need wider participation. So in Boston, just as a reminder, we have the internal meeting, and we have this SR showcase. This is a PDF with the link for registration. Don't hesitate to come with someone to grab a coffee. It's not a session of 1 hour and a half. It's going to be really like an open space to discuss, to present on the SR, to invite people coming. Is not in the conference program and is out of the exhibitors open, so you can just come before the opening, grab a coffee, bring someone, or just say hello or share the invitation. You don't need to register. If we would like with the SR registration, because it's easy for us then to follow up and to understand who is coming, to get prepared. But if at the last minute you are able to bring someone or to share the information with someone within the floor, just bring them and come by. And finally, if you want to use the Proud to Work with SFP badge, you can request it in the link that is in the presentation that I'm going to share. And I've accelerated a lot, even if I just book 1 hour and 15 minutes for this meeting, but I've tried to accelerate as I know that you may be busy. But I want to open the mic for you for discussion, comments, proposals, questions. Nothing?
I think, Carmen, you have covered everything pretty well, so
Thank you,
not
Stefan.
much more to say.
Okay. Okay, just I will share everything, the notes. We will see in a week probably. No, in a week, in 10 days, more or less. So just let me know if you want to bring. So these are the topics that I'm going to cover more or less during Boston. I was not thinking in delivering a presentation in Boston, really having an open discussion with all of you. So just bring to the group any topic that you want to discuss about, any new thing that you want to introduce in the agenda. This is alive. The agenda is alive. The work plan is alive. So we can adapt and we can address any new question that you want to raise to the group. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. I hope seeing you in Boston. I believe the majority of you, I'm going to see you in Boston. If you are not coming, but you have staff in your companies that is coming, please let us know. Send me an email, and I'll be happy to. We are going to have a booth as well, so if you want to schedule a meeting with me, with any other colleagues from SFP, don't hesitate.
Thank you, Carmen. See you
Thank
there.
you.
Thank
Thank you, Carmen.
See you.
Boston.
See you there.
Bye. Have a good day.
Gracias,
Have a good
Carmen.
night.